Driving here, guys. Just wanted to redo a video that I did really early on in which I was kind of introducing my vertical squash experiment this year. And I named everything wrong because baby squashes all pretty much look the same and my labels got all mixed up. So the labels are all wrong, and now that the garden has had a chance to actually really grow, my observations are very different than they were. So when it comes to growing vertically, not all squashes are the same. So there are some that don't really want to vine, and they're going to be, of what I've planted this year, the ones that don't really want to vine all that well are the zucchinis and the yellow squash. I have crookneck yellow squash here, and my zucchini, I mean, he's kind of buried in there, you can't really see him, but I have one over here, and he's growing up on my little tripod there, and I've been tying him up, and you can see how a vertical zucchini wants to grow. The leaves are very close together when they come out. The flowers, and therefore the fruits, are all around that centerpiece, but there's not a lot of room in between each of the vines, or each of the shoots of the leaves coming out here. So it gets tall because it just keeps producing, and that normally would be laying across the ground, and I just have it tied up. For my tying, I'm using twine. It's not my favorite. I did start out, I don't know if you can see it way down there on the bottom, there's that green florist tape. I really liked that, but I couldn't find it anymore after I ran out of it, so I'm kind of stuck using twine until I can find that. But this is my zucchini here, and I literally just wrap around the post, make sure I'm between any of these guys, and just pull it back. It needs to go up again. Just pull it back into position and tie it off, and there you go. I make sure I try to keep the zucchinis reasonably sized. They get big so fast. So that's how the zucchini and the yellow squash want to grow. You can go vertically, but you can see they're not exactly small. He branched out. He took up so much room just trying to get as much light as he could. And so just know that that's the growth pattern that you're going to get out of zucchinis and yellow squashes. So the butternut squash right here has vined up beautifully. You can see the difference between, here's one leaf, here's the amount of vinage, and here is the next leaf coming out. So we have this much space for vinage as opposed to that much space. So yeah, this is that's basically the biggest difference, is how much space is there between each of the leaves. Now these guys had plenty of sun, and these were the fastest growing of all of my vines. All of these were planted at the exact same time. They all went into from seed into the starter at the same time. These came up first. They were the biggest to get out here first, so therefore they took off, and just, they were really happy. I had to go along the back there, and now we're trailing along the fence at about that height, which is about 10 feet, roughly speaking. That seems to be the limit. It doesn't really want to go much further past that point. It's still got the little growth ends on it, so it might, but it's pretty much reached its limit. So about 10 feet. So plan on 10 feet of that. And let's see. So yeah, there's the tape I preferred because it stretches with the plant as it grows. It's not very restrictive, whereas this could cut the vine as it gets bigger. And that is what happened over here, I think. I'll get to that, but that's the pumpkin. So the other one on this side that grew well is a vine. So we've got the spaghetti squash. This right here is my butternut squash. It is also vining up very nicely. Again, you see the amount of span between one leaf and the next leaf, and therefore between one fruit and the next fruit. So this is what makes it vine very nicely. And again, it's probably, this guy is growing really slowly. He, again, planted the exact same time as the spaghetti squash, exact same time, but this guy is like half the size. And because he's in the front of the bed, this is right where the afternoon sun hits, so he's had full sun. He's got no excuse other than the butternut squash just is a nice slow grower, so plan for that. There's our cucumbers. There's my melons. I have an icebox melon, or a sugar baby basically, trying to grow up here. Again, a very slow grower. It's a very different leaf pattern than any of the squashes, obviously not not very closely related. And finally, however tall that is, he's probably about 5 feet up. I finally have my first little baby watermelon finally growing. So it took a while. But the squashes grow so fast that they overtook the space, because that's where the melons are, down in there with these giant leaves. So good thing he got long enough before this guy got too big to completely drown him out in sunlight. So be aware of that if you're going to grow squashes and melons in the same grouping. Melons grow a whole lot slower once they get going. Because yeah, this one of all the ones that I planted, the butternut was the second slowest. The melon was super slow. It was literally the last thing I planted in here. So this is a yellow squash. He's actually vining a little bit better than the zucchini, but you can still see there's not a lot of space between one leaf and the next. And I'm not sure if the reason it's vining the way it is because it's fighting for light, and so it's trying to grow up. But I suspect that that's pretty much just the growth pattern, because the zucchinis on that side, way over there, that we saw originally, are completely drowned by the pumpkin and this butternut and the spaghetti squashes, and they have not done this. So I expect this is how it wants to grow. So this is kind of an okay vine. I'm not expecting that this one is going to get anywhere near as tall as anything else. So this one might get about 5 feet tall, which is what I've got for my support staff. So this will work just fine for what I've got here. This is a pie pumpkin, and again you can see we got a fairly big distance between one leaf and the next leaf, so he vined up very nicely. And that one is a casualty of the twine. He broke because the twine just right through it, because I actually live in a high wind area. So I've tied him up and I've got my fingers crossed, because I've got other examples of there where the leaves are broken, the stem is broken, and the leaf is just chugging along just fine. So that did not shear off completely. So I put it back together and kind of crossed my fingers. We'll find out. That's why I went ahead and topped it, because if it's already broken, then I don't want it to add any more weight than it's already got. So he got topped. I have one more in here. This is my acorn squash, and he adequate viner, I guess, but the spaghetti squash grew so rapidly, and then the pumpkin grew so rapidly, that this this acorn squash just doesn't have the light that the other ones do. But even so, he's got I got a couple of acorn squashes coming in, yay, so that'll be good. So yeah, that's my observation on which of the varieties I have this year that are doing well, in terms of what grows vertically very well and how big do they actually get. And I've never seen spaghetti squashes as big as these guys are. I wonder if that's because I'm pruning them and forcing them to focus all their energy in the main stalk. So I'm getting giant spaghetti squashes. So yeah, so in terms of if you want to try the vertical gardening, know that not all the squashes grow the same way, or have the same height potential. I think that the pumpkin might have gotten as tall as the spaghetti squash, but I planned poorly and didn't realize how big it was going to get, so it's not going to reach that potential because I can't get a ladder in here and get that tall. So for contrast, I've got one spaghetti squash. It's got 2 vines on it, so there's actually 2 spaghetti squashes here. And I'm literally just going to let them go along the ground and be like, all right, do what you're going to do, vine out as often as you want. I want to compare the difference between letting them go on the ground and training them vertically. And then again, my squashes, the yellow squash. This is what I mean when I said I mislabeled I got all of them wrong. So I don't know what this guy is. Maybe he's a yellow, maybe he's not a zucchini. Doesn't have the same leaf pattern. I'm really, really, really hoping it's an acorn, but I don't think so. The leaves aren't quite right. I hope it's not another butter crookneck. I got enough of that. But anyway, so that's my comparison will be at the harvest to find out how does the let it go and just grow along the ground and shoot out vines however many it wants to, compare with focused vertical growing. And you can see the bowing in that cattle panel with the weight of those pumpkins, or the weight of those spaghetti squashes. So that'll be interesting. Fortunately, my pie pumpkins will not get that big. But anyway, so that was my observations on which of the squashes grow vertically faster, better, more easily worked with. So far, I might have more observations on that particular thing closer to harvest. We've only got about 3 months of growing in, so we've got another while to go. All right, hope that was helpful to somebody. Thanks, bye.